or checking if what I'm doing is halal or haram, because I'm following your instructions. So if you say it is halal and I do it, and if it in reality it is not halal, I will not be held responsible in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if it is something that is haram and I do it, or I don't do it, but I should have done it in reality, then Allah, when He questions me in the day of judgment, I can say I did it or I did not do it because the Imam told me not to do it or to do it. So in this case, when we are following the rulings of a marja, of a mushtahid, we are basically putting the entire responsibility of our religion on their shoulders. Meaning that they are the ones who are going to be responsible on the day of judgment to answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If they made something halal or haram, it was based on their ijtihad. I am no longer going to be held responsible. So if I look at the Risala of Ayatollah al-Sistani and I see that there's something where he said it is halal and I do it, but in reality, and when I mean in reality, what I mean is that, you see, now we are living in the time of occultation, right? We do not have access to our Imam. If we were to hear the ruling from the Imam, we don't need to doubt it. We don't need to have any doubt about it. What comes from the Imam's mouth is hujjah for us. But because we are living in the age of occultation, where we don't have access to the Imam, all the rulings we are getting are from Marajeh who are not ma'soom. So there is possibility that in the ijtihad, they may have come up with their own ruling, which in reality, according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's actual knowledge, is something which is not halal. But because they have done their ijtihad, they have reached the level of Islamic education where they can give these rulings, and I follow them, I'm not going to be responsible in reality if what I've done goes against the rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So taqleed means entrusting the matters of religion. And when it comes to entrusting matters of religion, we're talking about only those matters that are furu'uddin, right? Not usuluddin. When it comes to usuluddin, you are not allowed to do taqleed. Meaning that if Ayatollah Sistani comes and tells you that there's only one God, you're not supposed to just accept it. Unlike in Islamic rulings, where if he says that in the salat there's a specific ruling and he gives it, you follow it. You don't question it because you are following him, right? You're entrusting everything to him. But when it comes to matters of fundamentals of religion, comes to usul, comes to your tawheed or nubuwa or imama, you're not allowed to do taqleed of any individual. So it's only in instances of Islamic rulings. Okay. Now, there are two ways that we can prove taqleed, because you see, taqleed is something that nowadays is questioned. Even in the circles of Shia Islam, there are a lot of individuals who doubt the concept of taqleed. They say that we do not believe in this matter of taqleed. We don't need to follow a marja. For us, we have the Holy Quran and we have the books of ahadith. So for us, we don't need to follow a marja. We will follow what we consider to be the ruling coming from the narrations. Fine. But how can you prove the concept of taqleed rationally? And by rationally, what I mean is using your intellect, using your common sense. How can you prove taqleed? So taqleed is something that is actually common practice. It is something that we're doing on a day-to-day basis, and yet we don't realize it. In other matters outside of religion, we are actually doing taqleed. What do I mean by that? One example. When you go to a doctor, right? When you go to a doctor with an illness, he diagnoses your illness, and then he prescribes some medication for you. Do we question that doctor on the medication he's given us? No, we just take the medication because we trust him that he has got all the medical knowledge to be able to prescribe the right medicine for my illness. We don't question this doctor. We don't go and follow our own medical books. We don't go onto Google and search for, okay, I'm feeling this pain. Type on Google and you get medication. You don't. You go to a doctor, right? That is a level of taqleed, because you are basically entrusting your body's affairs to an expert. Similarly, when you have a breakdown of your car, you have some problems in your car, right? You take it to a mechanic. When you take it to a mechanic, you leave the car in the mechanic, and then let's say that the guy says, come back to me after 4 hours, your car will be ready. Now you go back to him after 4 hours, and you open the car, you turn on the ignition, and you drive away. Within those 4 hours, you have not questioned what the mechanic has done. You have got so much trust in what he has done that you are able to drive the car out of the garage. Because why? Because he was an expert in matters relating to the vehicle. So you did not question him that, why did you do it this way? Why did you do it that way? Why did you put this part in here? Why not that part? You completely entrust him with the matter of fixing your car. That is called taqleed. So why is it that when it comes to religious matters, when it comes to Islamic rulings, that we should not follow the same methodology? Because if we are following a doctor in medical advice, we're following a mechanic in relating to a matter relating to a vehicle, then when it comes to Islam and when it comes to our rulings, on what basis can we say that I don't need to follow an expert there also? The same concept should apply there as well. That if someone who is more learned than me, who has spent his entire life studying Islam and studying religious rulings, just like a doctor spends 10 years becoming an expert, or a surgeon who now you are entrusting your whole body to him when you go on an operation. He's going to put you under anesthesia and then he's going to operate on you. You have left your whole body to him. You're entrusting him with everything. Because why? Because he spent years and years studying to become an expert. Similarly, a marja is someone who spends years and years becoming an expert in Islamic law. So if you're doing taqleed on a day-to-day basis in our common matters around in our life, then when it comes to Islam, we should follow the same basis, right? That's the rational evidence. If there are any questions, please stop me and then we can have an interactive discussion as well. Any questions right now? Any questions from Zoom? From the participants on Zoom? Right? Yeah. I have a question. Yeah. So, this is one of the these are very important. So it does make sense. We will also do not make do not make the one who leads your prayer the intermediary in your religion. If he's upright, it is for himself, and if he's misguided, it is for himself. Indeed, you will not be taken into account following this, but rather you will be held accountable following the truth. So that part makes sense, but of course, we're putting the nations onto them to be held accountable for whatever actions we do because of them. But then, what would be the reason of Mauli saying, do not make the one who leads your prayer to be? Also, it's not like I'm so one of the reasons we can think of making him an intermediary may be that, you see, when the Imams mention something in the narration, we need to understand what the context of that hadith is and what does he really mean. When it means that don't make him an intermediary, that basically means that first you need to make sure that who you are following is someone who has got the right character and has got the right level of knowledge for you to be able to follow him. So in this case, one of the reasons that the Imam is saying that is that don't just blindly go and follow anyone in matters of religion. And in this case, he's talking about salat. So he's saying don't blindly go and just follow anyone, because yes, you are not going to be held responsible. That person is going to be held responsible, but it is your responsibility to make sure that you're following the right person. Not just any Tom, Dick, and Harry that you can consider him to be an intermediary and follow him. So in that way, one of the possible reasons could be is that when we need to follow a marja, it is our responsibility to select or choose the right marja. And there are some rulings around that also, inshallah, that will come to. Unfortunately, we can't see the screen, otherwise I wanted to show the hadith. We don't have it, no, but it won't work because I'm not connected to my laptop. So do we have HDMI cable?
You need for maybe internet cable or Wi-Fi, same link. That's why I'm checking this TV.
Okay, let me bring here the Zoom screen. Okay. Maybe we can do that.
इसमें पहले Wi-Fi connect Wi-Fi नहीं है.
Zoom screen. Browser.
Multi-screen share. Go to multi-screen share. Yeah. Are you connected to, is Wi-Fi connected?
Wi-Fi तो connected.
Okay, then go to multi-screen share, then I'll show you.
Multi-screen share पे आइए, ये रहा.
यहाँ पे ये मांग रहा है.
दोनों same उस पे connect है ना?
Okay, fine. Let me do this.
सेटिंग में जाके इसकी करना पड़ेगा. इसकी सेटिंग में जाए, टीवी की सेटिंग में.
पहले वहां से ये ऑप्शन पे है कि
No, I'll do it from here, but I just need to find that option of Screen sharing.
Alright.
I got my. You're trying to find it.
Machine name आ रहा है Smart TV 3508.
Connect to a wireless display.
3508.
It's now searching for the device. Let's see.
Smart TV 3508.
No display is available. Oh, it says on the same LAN.
केबल मांग रहा है ना, केबल के लिए जा रहा है, वाईफाई से नहीं कनेक्ट।
No, then it won't work. It has to be a cable connection.
केबल
not
कनेक्शन
Wi-Fi.
मांग रहा है वो।
So we just need an HDMI cable. Next time I'll bring an HDMI
नहीं,
cable.
नेटवर्क केबल लगा देंगे, अभी कर लो, वरना फिर ये ऐसा ना डिस्टर्ब हो जाए।
Okay. Because I wanted to show these hadiths on the screen also. So if you guys want, you can log into Zoom. I'm sharing my screen, then you can see the same hadiths. Yes.
वाईफाई पे जाइए तो उस पे आ गया, वाईफाई पे जाए, बैक पे जाए, बैक। ये बराबर
Are you on Zoom?
ये
Oh, you can see from there? Okay. So now we've spoken about the rational evidence, right? How we can prove the concept of taqleed. But how do we go? No, it won't because it's saying it's LAN. It won't work.
वाईफाई सेटिंग
Yeah.
रहने दो, बाद में करेंगे। गूगल पे जाए।
Okay. Anyways, we'll continue. So I think what we'll do is next week, inshallah, we'll repeat this lesson because I think it's important that if you're able to visualize what's on the screen, it's easy for you to understand and grasp the knowledge because it just becomes easier. So I think today, I guess what we can do is that we can talk. I'll just talk about the things, and then next week, inshallah, we'll share the slides. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran in Surah Tawbah, He mentions one of the ayah that we're quite familiar with, where He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَمَا كَانَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ لِيَنْفِرُوا كَافَةً. He says that why is it not the entire community should go out in once to understand the matters of religion? He says, فَلَوْلَا نَفَرَ مِنْ كُلِّ فِرْقَةٍ مِنْهُمْ طَائِفَةٌ لِيَتَفَقَّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Understanding and gaining knowledge is wajibul kifai, right? What does wajibul kifai mean? Wajibul kifai means that a matter is obligatory on everyone. But if some people are able to take on that responsibility, then it is no longer obligatory on the other people. That is what wajib kifai means. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is saying is that from a group or from a community, some people from that community should go out and do what? لِيَتَفَقَّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Meaning, لِيَتَفَقَّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. So you know this word fiqh that we know about, F-I-Q-H, fiqh. What does that fiqh actually mean? Yes, in common terminology, fiqh means Islamic laws. But fiqh actually means a deep understanding. That's what fiqh means. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that why don't a few people from every community go out and understand and obtain a deep understanding of religion so that وَلَيُنذِرُوا قَوْمَهُمْ إِذَا رَجَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَحْذَرُونَ, so that they come back to their community and they now teach those rulings to the community members, right? This is basically one of the evidences where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is that people in a community should go and obtain understanding of religion. When they come back, they should teach those rulings to the people in the community. That's one of the textual evidences to prove the concept that we should be following this concept of taqleed, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran Himself is saying, He's not saying that no, my book is enough for you, and the narrations of the Imams are enough for you. Now everyone should just understand Quran, understand the narrations by themselves, and follow Islam the way they want to follow. No. He's saying that some people, not everyone, some people should go out and obtain a deep understanding of religion. And that is what happens when it comes to the concept of marjia, is that you find a few people from the community who go to the Hawza al-Ilmiya, and then they go and they understand and obtain deep understanding. Right? Okay. Another textual evidence that we have got is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He says, فَأَسْأَلُوا أَحْلَ الذِّكْرَ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. He says that ask the people of the Quran if you don't know. Right? So Allah here is giving us a principle. He's saying that if you have a question and if you want to get the answer to that question, فَأَسْأَلُوا. He says, go and ask أَحْلَ الذِّكْرَ. Go and ask the people of dhikr. Dhikr is, so Imam Raza alayhi salam, he says in the narration that we, nahnu ala dhikra, yani we are the people of remembrance. So what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying? He's saying that those people who have got the knowledge of Islam, go and ask them. Now, at the moment, we do not have access to our Imam. So how can we apply this ayah in our daily life? Ahl al-dhikr in this case can be basically the representatives of the Imam, right? I don't mean formal representatives, but anyone who is basically gone to a level of ijtihad that they're now representing the religion of Shia Islam, right? And those individuals, you can say that go and ask these people for matters that you are not sure of. Another relation that we find, another textual evidence we find is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying when people or when women come and ask you, when they say, وَيَسْتَفْتُونَكَ فِي النِّسَاءِ قُلْ اللَّهُ يُفْتِيكُمْ فِيهِنَّ. For individuals or for matters relating to laws regarding women, right? They want to come and ask you, this is regarding the Holy Prophet. They come and ask you some rulings around the rulings around women. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Allah instructs you about them. So the main thing we need to understand is that when our religious scholars are coming up with Islamic rulings, those rulings are not based on their own independent, like there's no wahi, there's no revelation that has come to them. What they are doing is they're looking at the Quran, they're looking at the narrations, and they are extracting all the rulings from these two sources to come up with a ruling. It is not a new ruling that has come to them from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every ruling that a marja is giving you is actually the ruling that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given either in the Quran implicitly or explicitly and has been detailed in the narrations of the Imams, of the Ma'sumin, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is giving the rulings. It is the responsibility of the scholars to extract those rulings from the Quran and from the narrations. Another textual evidence that we have here is when it comes to there's a narration that we have where so there's an individual called Abu Ali Ahmad ibn Ishaq who informs the narrator from Abu al-Hasan. In this case, Abu al-Hasan can either be Imam Musa Kazim alayhi salam or Imam Raza alayhi salam, right? So when it comes to fiqh, as I was saying, when you look at a narration, you will see all the narrators in that hadith, right? And if I could show you, I would show you that how a hadith looks like in a book. You know, you have all the individuals who are mentioned right to the end of the last person who is narrating from the Imam. And that person who's narrating from the Imam, usually you don't find the actual name of the Imam, you find the kunya of the Imam. So in this case, the narration is coming from Abu al-Hasan, right? And Abu al-Hasan here could either be Imam Musa Kazim alayhi salam or it could be Imam Raza alayhi salam. Because what are the kunyas of all the Imams? So like we know that, what is the kunya of Imam Hussain alayhi salam? Right, mashallah. What is the kunya of Imam Baqir alayhi salam? Abu Ja'far, right? So the kunya will either be the father of the name of the Imam, or sometimes the kunya is basically saying that you are the person who has that virtue, right? So when we say Abul Fadl, it doesn't mean that Hazrat Abbas had a son called Fadl. It means that he's the father of virtue. So sometimes when you say Abul Fadl or Aba Abdullah, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are the father of Abdullah. It means that that characteristic that you are the father of, you have that characteristic in your personality. So Aba Abdullah in this case is Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Aba Abdullah in our Imams is also Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. So when it comes to fiqh, because most of our narrations come from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, every time you see Aba Abdullah, it is who? Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Every time you see Abu Ja'far, it is Imam Baqir alayhi salam. Even though Imam Muhammad Taqi is also called Abu Ja'far, but he's called Abu Ja'far al-Thani. He's the second Abu Ja'far. But most of the times, when you say Abu Ja'far, it is the Imam Baqir alayhi salam. When you see Abul Hasan, it is Imam Musa Kazim or Imam Raza alayhi salam. Or it can also be Imam Hadi al-Naqi alayhi salam, because he's also Abul Hasan. Basically Imam, who is Abul Hasan also? Imam, yes, but Imam Ajli, usually you don't find Abul Hasan, you'll find the Amirul Mu'mineen, right? In the hadith, you find Amirul Mu'mineen that's mentioned. But sometimes for you to know who is this Imam that's being spoken about, you need to look at the context of the hadith. You need to look at the narrator. Because depending on which age that narrator belongs to, you can see which Imam he's talking about. So Abul Hasan is basically Imam Ali, it is Imam Musa Kazim, it is Imam Ali Raza, and it is also Imam Hadi al-Naqi. Why? Because Imam Hadi al-Naqi's son is called Imam Hasan al-Askari. So there are many Abul Hasan. There are many Abu Ja'far, there's two Abu Abdullah. There's Abu Muhammad. So Imam Hasan alayhi salam is Abu Muhammad, right? You've got, who else is Abu? Imam Zainul Abidin is also Abu Muhammad, because his son is called Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam. So every time we look at a narration, if you want to know who is the Imam that is being spoken about, who is this narration coming from, and you look at the kunya, most of the times these are the principles. Abu Ja'far, Abu Abdullah are usually Imam Sadiq, Imam Baqir alayhi salam. So in this case, it is coming from Abu Hasan alayhi salam. Who is Abu Hasan in this case? It is Imam Hadi al-Naqi. Why do I know it's Imam Hadi al-Naqi? Because what is the narration? The narration is saying that there is an individual who comes to Abu Hasan and he says, Man u'amilu aw amman akhudhu. Who should I take my knowledge from? Right? This person probably living in a very far away city. See, in the times of the Imams, not all their followers were living next to them. Right? Religion had spread far and wide. So you had followers who were living in different cities. So for them, accessing Imam was probably as difficult as it is for us to access our Imam. They couldn't physically go and see him. So now in that time, where you don't have emails, you don't have phones, how was a person who's living in Kufa supposed to follow the rulings of an Imam living in Medina if he cannot physically go there? So this person, he goes to the Imam, he says, I'm living in this land. Who should I speak to for matters of my religion? Who should I take my knowledge from? Who should I deal with in terms of matters of religion? Whose word should I accept? He says, وَقَوْلَ مَنْ أَقْبَلُ. Whose word should I accept? So what does the Imam say? The Imam says, Al-Amri thiqati. Al-Amri thiqati. He says, Al-Amr is trustworthy for me. So if whatever Al-Amri is saying to you, follow what he is saying. Whatever rulings he's giving you, you follow his rulings. This is taqleed, right? This Amri is not a ma'soom, but he's someone who has got that level of credibility that if this Amri is in your city and he gives you a ruling, whatever ruling he's giving you is as if it is the Imam that's giving you that ruling. So in this hadith, you can also find that this concept of following the rulings of a non-ma'soom was a practice even during the times of the Imam. So who is this Amri? This Amri is basically called Uthman ibn Sa'id al-Amri. He was a companion of the 10th and the 11th Imam. So now if you want to find out who is this Abul Hasan, you need to find out who is this Amri that the Imam is talking about. When you go to the books of Rijal, which are basically books about the narrators, right? You will find that, okay, this person lived during the times of the 10th and the 11th Imam. So Al-Amri lived during the time of Imam Hadi al-Naqi and Imam Hasan al-Askari. So if Abul Hasan is being mentioned in the narration, that means it can't be Imam Musa Kazim, it can't be Imam Ali Raza, because this person lived during the time of the 10th and 11th Imam, not during the time of the 7th and the 8th Imam. So Abul Hasan means Imam Hadi al-Naqi. So I'm just giving you an understanding of that when it comes to following the narrations, how should we go about determining who is the narrator that is being spoken about? So what does he say? Imam says that Al-Amri is my trusted one. He says that whatever he conveys to you is from me, and whatever he says to you is from me. So listen to him and obey, for he is the trustworthy and reliable one. Okay. Another textual evidence we have is now we're looking at a narrator who is known as Al-Fadl ibn Sha'zan, who narrates from an individual called Abdul Aziz ibn al-Muhtadi, right? These two individuals were companions during the time of Imam Rada alayhi salam, right? So what do you find? You find that this person, he goes to Imam Raza alayhi salam and he says, Ya Imam, I cannot see you wherever. You're not with me all the time. I'm not your companion. I have got business to do. I have to go to so many different lands. I've got religious matters that I need a ruling on. I'm not with you. So what must I do? Or I'm living in a city that I'm so far away from you. What must I do? So who must I take my religious issues from? The Imam says, Khud and Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman. Take them from Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman. Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman was one of the very esteemed companions of Imam Rida alayhi salam. So here again, the Imam is giving us an example, or he's giving us a way for us to be able to obtain religious rulings from a non-ma'soom. Because as long as these individuals are representatives of the Imams, then we know that whatever they say is coming from the Imam. Right. Another textual evidence from Imam Baqir alayhi salam, right? You find that Imam says to another companion of Imam Baqir called Aban ibn Taghlib. So what does the Imam say to Aban? He's giving him an instruction. He's saying, Ijlis fi masjid al-Madinati. Go and sit in the mosque in the Medina. Go and sit in the Prophet's mosque. Wafti nasa fa inni uhibbu an yura fi shi'ati mithluka. Go and sit in the mosque and give fatwas. Ifti. Afti means to give fatwas. Go and instruct and give religious rulings to the people. Why? Fa inni uhibbu. For I really like it that I want to see more of you as my followers who are sitting and giving religious rulings. So you see another evidence where the Imam is saying that for non-ma'soom, they're supposed to go and they're supposed to teach and give religious rulings. It is not something that's only for the Imams to do. So for those people who now say that we are living in the time of the greater occultation, we do not have access to the Imam, so I'm not going to consider any of these so-called religious authorities as an authority over me because they're not ma'soom. I will go straight to the hadith because hadith comes from the Imam. No, this is a concept that the Imams had taught during their times as well. What I'm trying to do here, brothers, is that inshallah, again, I'm going to go through this next week and you will be able to see it on the screen, is that every one of us should be equipped with this knowledge to be able to deal with these issues if they are thrown at us. Because these are issues even within Shia Islam. And these are questions that you will be asked about. That what is taqleed? Why do you believe in taqleed? So I'm trying to give you a background behind where does it come from and what are the evidences for it. Right? Okay. Now, because we only have 10 minutes left, now we're going to talk about some of the conditions for a marja. What are the conditions for someone to be a marja? The conditions are that person is supposed to be baligh, right? He's supposed to have reached the age of puberty. He is supposed to be male. Two conditions. Male, he's supposed to have reached the age of puberty. He's supposed to be Shia Ithna Ashari. He's supposed to be a 12er Shia. He is supposed to be sane, meaning he has got full faculties of his mental knowledge, his full mental faculties. He's got control over it. He's supposed to be someone of legitimate birth, right? He's supposed to be someone who's born out of a marriage, not illegitimate birth. Most of the times, he's supposed to be someone who is living. Most of the times, not always, there are some exceptions where you can follow a deceased marja. We will come to that in the next slide, inshallah. And lastly, he's supposed to be just and he's supposed to be able to decipher between what's right and wrong. When we say just, what that means is that this person, apparently, in front of the knowledge of the people, he is someone who performs all his wajibat and who stays away from all the muharramat. That is what you call someone a just person. And he's also supposed to be the most learned. If a person fulfills all these conditions, then he may be called a marja. Marja comes from the word raja'a. Raja'a means to return to or to inquire from. So a marja is someone who you are inquiring about or returning to with regards to matters of religion, right? A follower is called muqallid, and the one who's being followed is called al-muqallad. I know right now it's difficult because I'm just talking, so it's hard to grasp everything. Inshallah, next time we are going to hopefully have a board and we'll be presenting everything on the screen so it can be seen. So I know on Zoom it is easy for individuals to follow. Now, how do you go about identifying a mujtahid? How do you go about identifying a marja? One of the rules is that you must have the capacity or the knowledge to be able to do it by yourself. But for that to happen, you must have that level of Islamic knowledge. You've reached that level where you can decipher yourself from these religious scholars who is the most learned one. Because a marja is supposed to be someone who is the most learned, right? So the first way to identify is for you to have that level of knowledge to be able to understand and say, okay, I think Ayatollah Sistani or Ayatollah Khamenei, according to your knowledge, is a marja. If you don't have that knowledge, the other way to identify is through two people who are learned and who are just, and who possess the capacity to identify. So two people come to you. They are people who are following all the wajibat, avoiding all the muharramat, and they're also learned. They come to you and they say, according to us, we think that, for example, Ayatollah Sistani is the most learned scholar, so you can refer to him. You can follow their instruction, you can follow their advice, right? As long as there aren't two other people who are contradicting what they're saying. Okay. Third way is that you may not find just people, but you find many learned people, right? Not every learned person is just. Unfortunately, not every person who has knowledge is performing all the obligations, right? But if you find so many learned scholars, many, who may not be just, but there's so many of them, that now they're saying that according to us, we think that Ayatollah Khamenei or Ayatollah Sistani is a marja, then you can follow him. So these are some of the ways for us to be able to identify. This is going to become very important for, especially for you and for me also, is because we are all, most of us are muqallideen of, let's say, Ayatollah Sistani, right? Ayatollah Sistani is quite old now, right? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prolong his life, but there will come a time in the future where he may not be alive anymore. And it's going to be, we don't know, but then the time is going to come for us to be able to now say, who are now we going to follow? Because Ayatollah Sistani has passed away, right? So these things we need to know. We need to know these things, that how now can we go about determining the most learned marja after Ayatollah Sistani or after Ayatollah Khamenei, for example. Okay. Now, what are some of the ways for us to obtain the verdicts or the religious rulings of a marja? The first way is that we hear it from the marja himself. Okay. For most of us, that is not possible. You don't live in Najaf. Even if we lived in Najaf, we don't have the ability to go and speak to Ayatollah Sistani and ask him a question. The first way is for us to be able to hear it from the words of the Mujtahid themselves. The second is that we need a ruling. We have two just people who give me this ruling, and I can follow those two just people, right? About the ruling from Ayatollah Sistani. The third one is that you hear it from someone and you have this kind of confidence in what he says. You trust him. And if this person gives you a ruling, you can follow it. And the last one, which is the one that is mostly followed, is for us to follow the book, or what we call the Risalatul Fiqh, or Risalatul Marjiya, basically, which is what the book of laws, book of Masail. Every marja has got a Risalatul Amaliya, which is the treatise of all the Islamic rules. So either we go and we read the book. Alhamdulillah, in this day and age, all the Islamic rulings are either available in print or they are available on the Ayatollah Sistani's website. So now we can easily access all those rulings by ourselves. Okay. Now, some of the contemporary issues that have come about of taqleed. Number one, as I mentioned before, you cannot do taqleed when it comes to matters of usul of deen. When it comes to matters, fundamental matters, Tawheed, Nubuwa, Imama, Adl, and Ma'ad, you cannot follow a marja when it comes to those things. What I mean is that unlike Islamic ruling, where if a marja says that you must recite this or you must do this in furu matters, you have to follow, you don't question. But if a marja says there is one God, you must believe, you cannot do that. You must believe in the fundamentals of religion using your own intellect and the reasoning that your mind is allowing you to process and come up with your conclusion. So taqleed cannot be done in matters of fundamentals of religion. Now, how is it that I have to go and obtain these religious rulings? The first is that I go become a mujtahid myself. That's the first thing. I become a mujtahid myself. I need to know what are the Islamic rulings for all the actions that I'm performing. What do? Go and become a mujtahid yourself. That's the first option. Most of us can't and don't have the ability to do so. If you can't do that, then we must follow mujtahid. Yes, that's called taqleed. But if you have obtained a level of Islamic knowledge to a level where you can do ihtiyat, which is called precaution, meaning that you don't follow any marja, but you do ihtiyat. What does ihtiyat means? Ihtiyat means that in matters of religious ruling, you always follow the most cautious approach. For example, something is said to be wajib by someone, a marja, and another marja says it is mustahab. So you following ihtiyat means you're going to do it as if it's wajib. You always follow the most conservative approach. That's called ihtiyat. But to do ihtiyat on matters of Islamic rulings requires you to have reached that level of Islamic education that you can actually by yourself read the narrations, understand the narrations, and then see that from these fuqaha, these are the rulings, and I have reached that level of Islamic education and knowledge that I can do ihtiyat, that I don't need to follow a marja. But for that, you need to have gone through many years of Islamic learning. So you're not a mujtahid per se, but you've reached that level of Islamic knowledge that you can do ihtiyat. Again, most of us are not able to do so. Okay, the third concept was that taqleed is a relatively new concept. That's the argument that nowadays goes about. What is this taqleed? It's only for the last 40, 50 years that we've been hearing about Ayatollah Sistani and taqleed. For you, it may not be new, but for in generation before us, this concept of taqleed was not as popular or as famous, right? Because at that time, distance was so far away, access to communication, access to knowledge was not that easy. It's now with knowledge, with communication, with technology that now you find so many things relating to taqleed coming up. So people say, what is this taqleed? We don't have taqleed 100. No, taqleed is something, as I've explained, a practice that was happening even during the times of the imams, right? So it is not a new concept.